To speak on before you. I have been asked to speak on a topic which is on which I am not an expert. I have certainly studied the theology of Hinduism. I have read through Bhagavad Gita many times. And generally on stress management, I have always believed that you give stress to others, but don't get stressed yourself. It's been my philosophy. But to speak to you, I'm basically a trained economist, and I have a PhD in economics. I've been a professor. First 10 years I was at Harvard, then I went back to India. Then I got into trouble with Mrs. Gandhi, and she threw me out of IIT. So I couldn't get any other job in India. So instead of migrating, I entered politics. That's how I became a politician. Of course, the job came back to me because the courts reinstated me after 22 years. And I got all my back salary without ever doing any work. So, but I could not go back. By then I had become a minister and things like that. So that's how I came to politics. Many of my political opponents hired lawyers to file cases against me, mostly defamation cases. And I didn't want to waste money hiring lawyers. So I decided to learn law. And although I didn't take a degree, I learned law and fought all my cases. I've had maybe 46 defamation cases against me, and I've won all of them. So now, in fact, I'm not including once Miss Jayalalitha had filed 100 cases against me, hoping that I'll be just spending my life going from one court to another. And I went to the Supreme Court against it and got all 100 cases dismissed in one order. So I became an expert on defamation law, and then soon I got into other things. So people think I'm a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm at least not a enrolled lawyer in that sense. I studied law, but I did not enroll myself as a lawyer. So that's how I came to law. It's the Periva, that is Jayendra Saraswati's arrest, which made me begin thinking about Hinduism and why he was arrested, what was the background behind it. And when I started going, I thought now Hindus were under siege and it was invisible. So that's how I got into this whole field of Hinduism. And slowly I started writing about it, and people, to meet the objections of people, particularly youngsters, that now in this day and age of globalization, how can we talk about all these religious values and so on? And then I suddenly came across, I propounded a theory as to why Hindu values are essential for stabilization of globalization. And the tribute for me on this work came from Fordham University, which is a Jesuit Christian university. And the president presided over my lecture. I came specially on a one-day trip from India on 2nd June to address a select gathering on Hindutva principles of economic development. And the reason I was invited is because the president said, and the head of the Department of Economics, who was an Indian and known to me for a long time, called Rishikesh Vinod, they felt that there is a dissatisfaction that exists in society, and people are looking for new ways to achieve material progress without the attendant misery that comes with it. And people become very rich and still become unhappy. The case of Julia Roberts is there, who went for a shooting to Haryana. And there she saw people with great serenity in their faces. So she asked somebody in the set, how come these people with so much poverty, are they so serene? So that person in the set took her to a guru in Haryana, and he explained to her Bhagavad Gita and why people in India have sort of internalized it without realizing it, and that's what makes us much more peaceful than, or at least at peace than other societies. And she came back and she converted with her entire family. She became a Hindu. Now, if such is the power of Hindu thinking in a place like Haryana, you can imagine if you had gone to Varanasi, what would have happened. And that happened to Stephen Jobs, who produces the iPhone, the well-kept secret. He came to Varanasi and became a Hindu. And there are many such. And now there's a plethora of books which have come out. One is called American Veda by Philip Goldberg, which describes how Americans are getting increasingly fascinated by Hindu concepts and Hindu thoughts. Then, of course, you had that famous article of one of the editors of Newsweek, Lisa Miller. I don't know how many of you saw that. Now we are all Hindus. You know, that was the title of the article. These are reproduced in one of my more recent books, not the latest book, but one of my most recent books called Hindutva for National Renaissance, which has been a bestseller in India. And I think, if you get that, Guru Varipan knows how to do it. You will be able to see all these things reproduced, what's coming in America. There is an undercurrent here that somehow materialism alone will not produce happiness. That you need some value system which has to be managed with that. Even the Chinese are now begun to talk about that. In fact, the Chinese president has propounded that the Chinese society will in future be a harmonious society and not a socialist society. Of course, it's not a socialist except in name, but the fact is that he propounded that. And he said the reason is that when some people become rich, others don't, jealousy comes in, and then this recreates class antagonisms and so on. So to overcome these emotions, you need values, and he said Buddhism and Confucianism are values which will tell you how to strive without being jealous. And that's why he's held conferences. The first, after almost 60-70 years of communist rule, International Buddhist Conference was held in Beijing. So there seems to be some consensus going around the world. And it's in that context that I started studying religion. So I'm here just to explain to you how in my personal, what I've learned in my personal experiences, and how I apply them and how I borrow them, how I trace them to the Hindu thought, and thereby bring in stress management. So this is what I am. I'm not speaking to you. My name may be Swamy, but I'm not a real Swamy. South Indians have this Krishna Swamy, Narayan Swamy, etc. My father thought, why should they all have these long names? Let's have just Swamy. And I used to be known as S. Swamy in school. But the Americans, you see, when I came here as a student, they said, what is this S? So I told them. So they listed me as Subramanian Swamy. So I became Subramanian Swamy as if my parents had named me Subramanian Swamy. So it's in this background that I have now thought that we have to translate these esoteric concepts of our tradition to simple, understandable way for the modern generation. And it is in this context that I've taken a leap into the future of helping a friend to set up a new television station in Tamil Nadu called Krishna TV. And I'm pleased that I'm addressing my first meeting in the United States in this trip from Krishna Temple. I'm here because Harvard every year invites me to teach one semester, which is a compressed semester of the summer, where 50% of the students are Harvard students and 50% come from outside. So I'm using that advantage of being anchored at Harvard to travel to to different parts of the country.